Breathe, right? That's what they say. Take a deep breath. Do a little woosah. Namaste, as yoga with Adrian would say. I chill, sit back. I'll read some chats. I'll take some phone calls. I'll answer questions. If you're still awake, if you're still watching, if I didn't scare you off. Um, Man, there's some powerful stuff that just came out. I hadn't even listened to all of it. All I know is Mindy Lee's mom was was on top of it 10 years ago. Had YouTube and Facebook been around, they were around, but the idea of live videos and the idea of live streaming and the idea of true crime sleuthers having these discussions and the world grabbing on, it was just baby. We were all babies and infants in this thing. We're still infants in it. It's still an infancy world. We're only 10 years into this real live long form stuff. I'm gonna open up the lines. If you've been watching if you just watched the last 2 seconds ago, I just finished a 2.5 hour that's a one episode, but we're gonna have a couple. I probably think we're gonna get 10 episodes out of the stuff I got here, and now I know I'm gonna have to go back and sit down with Vicky and talk with her. I'm gonna have to have Vicky on the show, and she's gonna have to share with us. So I know a lot of people got questions. I know a lot of you people have hey, and by the way, Rachel, I have another week. I just found out today that my schedule is not tomorrow for I thought tomorrow I was getting this thing. I've been telling people to pray for me on Wednesday. You can still pray for me, but I actually go in next Wednesday, and then I have the 3 Wednesdays in a row. So I still have one more week before I go in. I just found that out today. I was all ready. So, Randy, I am too. Her mom was very impressive, that recording. What a strong woman. Yeah, she's super, super strong woman. She ain't no joke, man. She was like dad with the phone before there was dad with the phone. She was out there trying to solve her and has continued to try to get answers in her daughter's murder, death. And so there you go. More time to keep me in thought. So if you want to call in, if you've been trying to, I had my phone off because I didn't want to get distracted during that live video. I hadn't listened to that footage yet. I hadn't watched it. And so that was the first time I had ever taken a look at it. So if you have questions, if you want to make statements, you can give me a call. What is your shirt? Is that a badge? No, what shirt? Oh, this is oh shoot, this might get me in trouble. This is a South African safari shirt. So safari shirt from a safari in South Africa. Going to Cripple Creek tomorrow, are you? Hi again, everybody. I'm calm now. I know I got fired up there the last bit. I got pretty fired up listening to that recording with the cops. And so what are your thoughts? What are your questions? If you don't know, if you're not familiar with the Mindy Lee case, there's a lot of information online. There's crime talk. Nancy Gray has done podcast. There's been a couple other podcasters out there that have done stories about this. But what we received and what we're going to bring from Dad with a Phone is just stuff that no one's ever seen. These are the personal recordings and the personal videos of Mindy Lee's mother as she tried to investigate that stuff. And so I don't know how many weeks, I don't know how many episodes it's going to be, but I'm going to talk about it, and then I'll do a recap and a follow-up like this video. probably will only go for about 20, maybe an hour at this. Who knows? We'll see how long we go. But if you have questions and you want to call in, you got my number. If you want to text them in, or if you want to throw them up there in chat, I'll try to answer them. So someone to see pictures of Mindy. That's right. You did tell me that Jamie tried to get me to show a picture of Mindy during the thing, and I was just slacking. Here's a picture of Mindy, and we will share that now. Like I said, we're gonna be doing quite a bit of covering Mindy Lee's case, and so we will definitely have some pictures, and I'll probably get some pictures from her mother to share with you more. But this is the picture that is out there that you can see, and Mindy was 33 when she was found dead. The official report is hypothermia. They like that one here in Woodland Park. So if you got questions, you can call in. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what if you got to watch the last video. I just finished it. A lot of you maybe haven't seen it yet because it's just out there. You'll need to go check it out. And so go listen to it, because it's not me. I promise you. I ran a little bit in there, but most of the video is Mindy Lee's mom searching for answers. And so it is my intention to stir the freaking pot. And we're going to start with these recordings. We're going to start with what we have here, but then we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to investigate and look into the people that are still involved in this. We're going to go search out maybe people that were around there, that maybe they know something, right? And then my true hope is that we stir something in someone that comes forward with information. We're not going to be able to move this case anywhere just with some videos, or it's going to take stirring the heart of someone that knows something to come forward. And there are people out there that have been living with guilt. There are people out there that by God, I'm going to pray guilt on. And so I actually know that my prayers work. And so I'm going to spend some extra time praying that someone comes forward and really then, has information that can, I don't know that we'll be able to get justice. I think more than anything is we want to know what happened. And the story that they're telling us, and the story that they're trying to hypothesize, like you heard that little female cop, well, if Mindy ran around the house, ran down the street, ran up the street, and went around the block, she might not have had any cuts on her feet. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Just say that the dang body wasn't there. Just say she wasn't there for 4 days when everybody was looking and mom was running. You don't think you actually see what Vicky is capable of when she was trying to find her. You don't think she was out till 4 a.m. the night she went missing. And so she was out the next day and the next day and the next day. And you're going to hear all this. They went up and down where they found Mindy. They walked past that shed a dozen times. A dozen people walked past it. And so for them to try to pass off that she just happened to be sitting there for 5 days and was hiding, she laid over and fell asleep and was frozen solid, it just doesn't make sense. It wasn't like she wasn't out there looking. She was out there looking the night of, the very next day, the next day, the next day. You hear how involved she was in this investigation. And so all of a sudden she shows up out of nowhere after dogs have run around, and you think, where was she hiding for 5 days, right? So she was wearing the same clothes, still barefoot. 5 days later, no dirt on their feet, clean. So the adults in the car know what really happened. Roll. The child in the car knows what really happened. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. I'm going to be protective, but I had a real long talk today with Vicky and said, you know, they can ignore the corrupt cops, right? Those corrupt cops, they didn't do a great job, right? They can ignore that. But when you hear what I've heard from someone that was there, you can't ignore it. They won't be able to ignore the screams of a child. They won't be able to ignore the story that's going to be told. And so we are going to let that simmer, and we are going to let that simmer with you, because I got to play this right. I'm playing for keeps on this one, kids. I'm playing to win. I'm playing I'm playing to do something different than just a little, oh, here's some information about a case, to appease your little true crime genre. I want to wake this up. And so we are working very, very, very strategic on how and when we release some stuff. But we let you know we weren't playing today. We let you know that the things that we have on these discs are the real deal, and this isn't I'm not trying to drama this up. I don't need to drama this up. I don't need to make anything up in this. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to pretend to have info. I don't have to pretend to have something worth listening to. I'm telling you, as this begins to unfold, you will see. But if I don't get a phone call, I'm gonna hang up on you kids. Just because the only reason I took this phone call is everybody wanted questions. Everybody had questions. So give me a call. Tell me, maybe my phone's not ringing. Maybe I ain't just watch your back. Do what? You think I'm scared? That's one thing, Mary. You think I'm scared? Please. You ain't been around dad with a phone for a minute. You ain't been around. If you think I'm scared about these, shoot. The men with guns don't scare me. They may get me one day, but they don't scare me. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about me. Say a prayer for me, Mary. Don't tell me to watch my back. Say a prayer. I ain't worried about it. If I get shot in the back, I get shot in the back. I can't do nothing about the elephants that fall out of the sky. But I ain't scared. That's the problem. They're going to have to kill me on camera. They don't know when I'm live streaming. Bristol, Tennessee's calling right now. Tell us what they really think. You're live with Dad with a phone.
Who is the guy that she keeps referring to that was with them that night? You went over the two girls.
No, Shannon is a guy. So
okay.
Shannon is the husband or the boyfriend. I don't know if Shannon and Kim were married or if they were just. I think I'm not 100% sure on that relationship, but Shannon and Kim were with her, and her daughter was with them, and I believe Kim or Shannon's son was there, a 14-year-old that they were dropping off or something. That's the story they tell, or they were going to pick someone up. But Shannon is the male, Kim is the girl, and there you go.
Do you know what the temperature was then? How long would it take her body to freeze solid?
I don't know. That's an interesting state. That's an interesting question. I do know that that when they found her, the ground was covered in snow, and there was a pretty good snow. And that's the cool thing, is we have all the weather reports from that entire week. And so we're going to unpack those over the next couple of shows and episodes. I don't have all those answers right now. We're getting some of those answers, but it was cold. I would like to know how long it takes a human body to freeze. Like solid, because that she was frozen solid. We do know that it took her 4 days to thaw out. And so definitely was cold, and there was a snowstorm, but I do not believe the night that she ran away, that Friday night, there might have been some scattered snow on the ground, but it wasn't like there was a snow cover at that moment, so
So, but it really is going to come down a lot to how long does it take the body to freeze solid.
well, yeah, because that is how the coroner and the medical. So two things happened here. One, Al Bourne was the coroner in Teller County, but this case was actually turned over to the medical because Al Bourne isn't an MD. He doesn't have an MD. He's not a medical. You don't have to have a medical examiner. You don't have to be a doctor to be a coroner. You're just an elected politician. And so the coroner in Teller County is elected, but he doesn't have any real. He's a door. First of all, Al Bourne is a crook, and I can tell you more. We're going to get into more about him because this is a perfect case to talk about him. And but then they turn this case over to the El Paso County coroner, and that's who Mindy Lee's mother. She speaks with him, the medical examiner, and she talks to him. And you're gonna see that he's not a smart gentleman. But I don't know how long it takes for a body to freeze. Somebody can Google that probably in a matter of seconds.
I was actually looking at it, and it says that nothing freezes until long after life ends. That as the body temperature falls, the enzymes needed for the life functions cease functioning, which drops the temperature further until finally the brain breaks down and the breathing stops. But the inner body is still well above freezing at that point. But it doesn't give an exact time, like how long it would take. But that's going to depend too on what the temperatures were.
Yeah, somebody just in chat says from Google, the rate at which temperature falls inside a body depends on how fast heat is drawn from it, and that depends on the temperature difference between the inside and the outside of the body. We do know that it was, it was zero, close to zero temperatures, probably, in the low teens, if not right there. I doubt it was below freezing here, but it could have been in the low teens, 20 degrees outside. Like I said, we will. I do have all that information. I have freaking hundreds of documents to go through, but it's not all been cataloged. It's just a collection of stuff, and so we'll find that information out, and then we'll see with the information we have from the weather. Vicky says it was 17 degrees, so there you go. She knows
and they're
this.
Claiming that her body temperature was high to begin with, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if she's running and there's some discrepancies on some things like. There is some drugs involved in this, and there are some toxicology reports involved in this a little bit, and there's some things that we're going to look at. And just like you heard, Vicky say, her daughters are not perfect, but it doesn't. This story is just crazy. So, Vicky says it was 17 degrees, so that's where it was, and it'd be interesting to know how long it would take a body to freeze in 17-degree temperature.
Well, that's assuming, because their story claimed that she was running a high fever and delusional from that.
Oh yeah, no, that's what their story. That's what their story does claim that she had, which is bullcrap. That whole story. Let's just start with the hospital. They never took her to the hospital. She was never at the hospital. She was never at the urgent care, and so that little story doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. She makes these phone calls to her mother. There's a possibility. There are some theories that maybe they were experimenting with some drugs, and maybe something went wrong, and it was some sort of overdose or drug thing, but it doesn't still add up to the things that they're saying happen, and so they're not talking about those things, and so yeah, it doesn't add up that she froze and she was running a high temperature and she was doing this and so, but there's also some suggestion that there's some people that have said some things over the years, right? Because Vicky's been looking into this thing for 10 years. She's as passionate about looking into this today as you heard her passion, 20, 30 days after this thing went down. And so for 10 years, they've been looking into this case and talking to people. And there are different stories that, there are people that claim that they put Mindy in a freezer and she was in a freezer for 4 days before they put her out on the football field. And so that's not stuff like we can actually prove unless someone comes forward and is willing to like say that out loud and they know that. It's one thing for rumors and messages to be sent to a mother or people investigating, but for people to, there's going to have to be someone that comes forward with maybe even incriminating evidence against themselves, or it may look like incriminating evidence, to get to the bottom of it. But I think it can happen. I think with 10 years and the amount of pressure we can start to put. So Vicky says Mindy was not a meth user. She's told me that. She had perfect teeth, beautiful skin. She didn't have any scabs or anything. So.
But some of that you would be able to, I would think, if you've got people saying, oh, well, she was put in a freezer, they would have to maneuver that body a certain way if it was frozen from a freezer to make it look like she had just sat down and slumped over.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can hear a little bit of that discussion that she has with that officer at the very end of that recording, when that the officer she's talking to, the female officer she's talking to, is the officer who was there that took pictures of Mindy. And so she's explaining that basically it looked like Mindy sat against the wall and then like fell asleep and laid over, right? And so, and then but was frozen solid, and so I
would think, though, you would be more kind of bent up. To me, it almost seems like they're saying, well, she was positioned, like they were very specific about that positioning. For the other things that they didn't seem to have answers to, oh, well, we don't know what they told us about the cell phone records. I'll have to look that up. I don't know about this. I'll have to look that up. But I know exactly how she was positioned.
No, I mean, no, there. So yeah, and that's the weirdness. I mean, you hear it in those officers. We all heard it in those officers, and it just is going to get weirder. It just gets weirder when you really start thinking about what they try to describe as what happened, and then you look at the logistics of what had to take place for that to happen. They just don't make sense. There's at least 2 fences she was going to have to go over to get to where she was at. And they do say that there was a hole in one inch of the fence or one section of the fence, but that means she had to know there was a hole there. She had to know in the dark how to get through that hole and stuff like that. So a lot of unanswered questions for sure.
Well, there was no part of anything in them videos that showed you wouldn't possibly be able to run through there barefoot. And 1, have clean feet, but 2, not have scratches or even indentions from the rocks.
No, absolutely. And that was uncovered by, and those questions became very clear. Not only Vicky, you hear her talk about that, and that's only 20 days or 29 days after she went missing. She's already talking about that. But then Bobby Brown, bail bondsman, also ex-homicide investigator, he has dug into this case for 9 years, and he's actually seen the autopsy photos. I haven't seen the autopsy photos yet. I'm hoping and planning to maybe be able to view those and maybe get a copy of those. Bobby Brown does have those, and so there are some things that we hope to bring light to, that it's not just us talking about her having clean feet. I hope to be able to show you guys her clean feet at some point going through this stuff, because again, I've ridden that area on my bicycle. No way. There's no way she runs from over there to where they say she is. And first of all, that doesn't make sense because they searched that in the daytime. So for 4 days, she sat next to that. They say she sat there, right, for 4 days, and that's where she hid or whatever. But there's just no way. There's just no way. And then they try to tell a little bit of the story of the McDonald's, because she had a McDonald's receipt that was either laid out next to her, or that was in her pocket or something. But yeah, the facts don't line up, which is weird, right? It doesn't make sense. But I can tell you that this is a pattern up here in the high country. I don't think it necessarily is because of straight corrupt cops, but there is this idea that they like to keep about Woodland Park being this super, super safe mountain town where nobody ever gets, and especially 10 years ago, they were trying to push this narrative about, you don't want murders on your record up in a little town in the mountains, And so they try to push a lot of this suicide narrative or this hypothermia, self-inflicted deaths, out there for lack of first education. The cops that were investigating this are some of the same cops that missed shit in the Kelsey Barrett case. I mean,
well, and I was good. Didn't they even say in the Kelsey Barrett case that they had no homicides in 2018?
And that's the narrative that they try to push. And so I know at some point people are like, Michael, quit saying that the cops are corrupt, or quit saying, saying this. Well, okay, if it's not corruptness, then it was incompetence. And if it wasn't incompetence by police officers, it was incompetence by, I think we're going to find out what they didn't do, because I have listened to a couple of other little videos when she's talking to the medical examiner, and y'all think she asked questions of the cops. Wait until you hear her start asking about, like, what was in Mindy's stomach. Did y'all look into her stomach? Did she have cheese? She wanted to know. She wasn't buying this, and so it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Why wouldn't they ask that question? If she supposedly sat down and had 2 McDonald's cheeseburgers, why would you not want to know what was in her stomach to tell you what time she ate those cheeseburgers?
Good question. I don't have answers, because I look at that and go, that's a logical question that should have an answer, And somebody asked in chat, would they ever resume Mindy Lee's body? And I spoke with Mindy Lee's mother today, and that is a topic of discussion. But that's going to take money. It's going to take some lawyers. It's going to take some effort, because they didn't even test the DNA under her fingernails. And
is it easier to do because it's a request of the family, or does that make it harder?
I don't know. I don't know that, because I ain't ever asked him. I don't think I've ever. I can't even know. I don't even know if I've ever know anybody that's had a body exhumed. So I know that it's not easy to get done. I know there's some legal issues, and I know that it's going to cost money. And so, that is a possibility, but I think for that to happen, we're going to have some new evidence come to light. And now there are a lot of questions around, like some stuff you heard today. Her purse was like thrown all over the car, and you hear it in one of the very first videos I show at the Loaf and Jug. Her mom goes into the Loaf and Jug, and this is where she met the cops at the Loaf and Jug. This is where she first found out about her daughter missing. Here's her shoes, here's a purse. And her mom told me today that wasn't her shoes. That wasn't her purse. It had a J on it. Mindy had a very high dollar wallet that she carried. Her and her mom carried the same exact wallet, and that wasn't the wallet that was given to her. Now later, her mom, and you hear her talk about this a little bit in the police video, her mom actually went and picked up, I'm the mother, can get it exhumed by a judge to go allow it. So she has to get it by a judge. Somebody has to do it. So the Mindy's mom could do it, but it has to come through a judge. But she her mom and her and Vicky's husband went up and they went and picked up her car, but they also they there's some weirdness that happened. The Suburban, or the SUV that all of this supposedly went down in, that Kim, Shannon, and Mindy were in, that SUV, I believe, actually belonged to like either Shannon or Kim's mom, right? And so when they went out there to get Mindy's keys, they also said, well, we need to get Mindy's stuff out of the SUV. So they got the keys to the SUV and got in there. And that's when they found stuff just scattered throughout the car. Her purse had been emptied. Her knife was open. And I believe that is because of struggle. Something happened in that vehicle, but the cops never searched that vehicle. They didn't treat it like a crime scene. They just were like, they said she jumped out, but with all that stuff scattered, with her knife being pulled, and some other things that will come to light, is there was something that happened in that SUV, and Mindy fought. And there may be also evidence that, there was evidence, and Mindy her face had bruises on it and had to be a little bit reconstructed, even for the funeral. And so there are some things, again, that will continue to answer questions, but
well, and to me, the stuff out of the purse, just as a woman, line of defense, grab the purse strap and start swinging.
yeah,
most of us carry enough in there that we could probably knock somebody out with one, which would make sense. That would be, if you swing your purse, if it's not zipped, your stuff's going to fly out.
exactly. There's a fight.
And you're also talking about a mother that she has a kid in that car. She's not, if she's not going to fight for herself, she's going to fight for her kid, because what happens to her kid if she's not there to protect it?
That child was almost 5 years old. And so I don't know about your 5-year-olds, but my 5-year-olds know what's happening around them.
Well, mine, she's not 5 no more, but she definitely knew what was going on at all times.
And so, and this is where this is going to get. I want to be very respectful, one of Vicky's wishes, and I want to protect Mindy's daughter, and I have to stay there. But there is some things that we'll talk about that are just, they're just crazy, as that daughter has grown up. There have been things that have come to light, and I'm going to try to share those things as respectful as I can. But I think they have to be talked about, because there are some things that have been said that they just will change the game. And so we'll get into that. We're going to get into all of it. So, man, some good questions, good thoughts. How long does it take a body to freeze? Why would she slump over like that? The purse is scattered.
Did the cops initially, did they talk to the 5-year-old?
I'm not quite sure how much they questioned the child during this time. I'm sure Vicky could share that with us if she feels comfortable with that, but I'm not quite sure how much of that happened at that time.
And I don't, not necessarily to know what they said. To me, I've followed you since the beginning of Kelsey, and the cops down there either seem to not talk to the people they should, or not ask the questions that they should, or they apparently have a thing for meeting people at gas stations, because they did that with Patrick Frazee too.
Right? Yeah,
But to me, in an investigation like that, step one would be, let's talk to the child that was there, even if you do it with a child psychologist there.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, did they take that step?
No, it looks like it looks like Vicky's answer in that question is that no, they did not talk to the child at that time when it first happened.
Which to me is the first epic fail.
Yeah, like they could have asked some simple questions of the child to see if the adults were telling the truth. You know, if the two adults were telling the truth, it would not be hard to get a little bit of information, even from a 5-year-old, to say, you know, what happened, where, you know, any of that. Can you tell us, you know? And there are some things, gosh, I gotta.
Or even because my kid at 5, even if you just said to her, well, where did you go? She might not know the name of the roads, and she might not know, but she could find something to tell you about where she was. Now, we went to the place with the swing in the tree, or they're going to do it on a 5-year-old level, but they don't have the capacity at that age to just blatantly start spitting lies at you.
Absolutely. No, and that's absolutely right. So that's where you look at this investigation and you go, to me, it seems like it would be an obvious one to open up. So Vicky's telling us that, you know, right after this thing happened, so right after they say she jumped out of the car, ran off, and they were looking for her on, you know, that Friday night, so she says, Vicky says, I was called to pick up Aspen at the Loaf and Jug, which I did, and take her to Mindy's friend's house. So they took her down to Mindy's friend's house, and then literally turned around down in Manitou and came back up here and began to search on that same night or that same day. So that's what happened with the child. Again, the questions around why you wouldn't talk to the child a little bit and question them, it doesn't make sense to me. And again, another reason why this case could be opened back up, you know, it could be opened up for investigation, you know, and just to question a few people where they didn't, you know. And the problem is police don't want to admit their mistakes. They don't want to say, oh, damn, we did screw up. We didn't have the forethought. We didn't look into it this way. And so,
but they didn't seem interested to, because even when mom's sitting there saying, you know, I'm wondering about this and I'm wondering about that, and they kind of blew off everything she said, or they had oh, well, people will act like that when they're on drugs.
That was their excuse, was basically just pass it off as, and that's what I remember hearing the narrative was. And that's why, like, I lived here at the time that Mindy was found, and I remember the narrative that was being shared, and it was, you know, oh, it was a drug kind of, you know, self-inflicted thing. And so the police did not ask her anything, is what Vicky says. They didn't ask her a single thing that night, which is just ludicrous.
And if you go back in history and you look at true crime stories with children involved in them, they talk to the kid. They have to do it a certain way. They have to have like a child psychologist, but they do it.
Why? And I just don't understand why you wouldn't, especially with the story being told. And it's not like Woodland Park is this massive place where someone could literally just vanish for 5 days and then just reappear, and then them say, oh, this was all her. Like, I'm telling you that you can see the passion behind what was happening 30 days later with Vicky. That she was out there the hours later. She was out there looking hours later. You know, she driving up where they say no vehicles go. She didn't give a shit. She was driving around looking for stuff, you know? And so that's why the whole story of what they're trying to say the narrative is just doesn't make sense. And so
Well, and maybe I heard it wrong, but did she say in one of the, might have even been when she was talking to the cops, in one of the videos though, did she say that the cops had told her that basically they couldn't do anything else that night and to just wait and see if she called?
yeah, and you know, like I try to defend, I try to defend this a little bit. I try, even when I was talking to her today, that you know, they have these procedures, right? They have these law enforcement procedures where they're like, oh, you know, an adult has to be missing for a certain amount of time before they can, you know, put in an official report. And you know that, yeah, well, wait a few days and she's probably going to show back up, you know. But mom didn't sit around and wait. She was out there driving up and down every block, screaming Mindy's name in the middle of the night, you know, looking for her up until early hours that morning, and then back up here the next day. And so um, the cops may not have been looking, and you hear Vicky tell those officers, y'all didn't go door to door. I was with y'all. I was right behind y'all when y'all were just searching, you know. And then they try to say, oh, well, we kind of canvassed the next day or this, that, and the other. They didn't do a proper canvas. They didn't do a proper you know, real search. And I understand it may have just been simple procedure that they were following. But when you have a story told by these are known people, by the way, both the people
they even said in there that they knew the people.
They knew who they were. They knew they had a criminal background, you know, and you have them telling you this one story that just, in my mind, doesn't even line up. It doesn't even line. Wait, you chased this girl down this way, and then what? She ran through this field barefoot. You know, why were you chasing her? Well, you know, what was she trying to get away from? Right? She very possibly did jump out of the car. There's going to be some things I tell you about when it comes to motive behind this. There's motive behind what happened to Mindy Lee. This isn't just a random act. There is actually motive behind, and the motive goes back to other murders. So again, I'm not trying to tell you that Mindy Lee's Miss Angel and Miss Perfect. The people that she hung out with knew about and may have been involved in not the people she hung out with, but the people that she was with that night may have some connections with other murders that took place. And the story that I have been told, and the story that will continue to unravel through all this stuff, is, and you heard a little bit, but Kim actually had informed Mindy and talked to Mindy about another murder, and that murder had taken place, uh, I believe, in Kim's house, or in a house that was related with Kim and Shannon, and so Mindy was privy to some information that she started to freak out about. And Kim was supposedly starting to freak out that they were going to try to kill her because she knew about this other murder that had taken place. And so the motive behind this thing is that Mindy may have known about some things that she was trying to bring forward. And her mom even admitted to me early on, and even just today, you know, she told her daughter to go talk to the cops about this thing, and to go, you know, let the cops know about this information that she had. And so, but it may have cost her life, because there could have been, and I say this unapologetically, and anyone can sit here and bash me, there may have been cops that were involved in some dirty murders around Woodland Park and Teller County, and Mindy Lee knew about it. And so there's actually motive behind the things that took place. This is not just a random act. And this wasn't just a random act. And we're gonna.
Well, and I think just just in what little bit we've seen, for a mom in any position to jump out of a car, if that happened, and run and leave their child behind, there had to be something going on in that car.
Right?
That she feared her life.
They may have been trying to kill her in that car, and she did get out. But if that was the case, the first thing she would have done is run for help, right? And she wouldn't go hide for 5 days. She's not gonna go hide for 5 or 4 days, and so because also her daughter was left, right? And so yeah, something happened. We're gonna try to find out.
And her and her mom seem to have been very close.
Her mom that's one thing I know for a fact.
I'm finding a phone to call my mom.
Yep, I know for a fact that her and her mom were close. They talked every day. This is why it didn't take mom a couple of days to find out. This is why they were able to get a hold of her that night. This because her mom, they lived just down the street from each other in Manitou Springs. She ate dinner over at her mom's house multiple times a week. This wasn't an out of touch. You can tell. You already know. You've seen it tonight. This wasn't an out of touch mom. And so, no, her and her mom had a very close and tight relationship, and they talked and communicated. And so, yeah, absolutely. Good observations. Well, thanks for calling tonight.
To the next one.
What? Yeah, I don't know when I don't know when I'm going to slam the next one on you. I'd love to do a marathon and just let y'all have it, but I feel like it's going to be a little bit more strategic. We're going to start stirring a little bit of the pot. We're going to stir a little bit of stuff, and I'm serious. Like, the only way this thing, I want to make a difference in this case. I don't want this to just be an informative little, here, let's have a little chit chat about this. People, we got to wake some folks up. And so we're going to wake some folks up, and I think it'll happen. So, hey, thanks for listening.
The way that you're doing it gives you a chance to kind of, here's a little bit, now process it, come up with your questions. Because if you just go back to back and just watch it like a documentary, you're going to miss it. You're going to miss a lot of things.
Yeah, tonight was a 2-hour and 45-minute deal, and I didn't even think about that. I probably should have cut with the videos and then gone to the phone call as a standalone. But that phone call, when I just listened to a little bit of it this afternoon, and this all came about today, by the way. This wasn't some plan. I have been talking with Vicky for over a year now, random messages, had a few phone calls with her, but today was the first day I met with her face to face. And, I didn't know what was going to happen when I met with her. I didn't know the information. She had a folder as a foot thick. She has a folder a foot thick of paperwork and documents and reports. And we're going to try to go through all that stuff and share a lot of that with you. But when she pulled these discs out of her little bag, and then she tucked the funny thing is she tucked them back in her bag. When we started that meeting this morning, she wasn't going to give me these discs. She wasn't going to give me these videos. That wasn't on her agenda this morning. I promise you that. These are very, very sacred things that you can tell this is something she went out and did. And I don't even, and then I got home and started looking at them. I tell you, I had to call her back up and go, we're about to open a can of worms that I don't even know if I can contain. And so, if you,
and honestly, yeah. I mean, you said it earlier, she was the mom with a phone before there was a dad with a phone.
Before there was a dad with a phone.
Who else would have thought to do that in that time?
Yeah, this is 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
How many times do cold cases come up that it just takes a new set of cops to look at it, and because you look at it so much, you get lost in it. So maybe her opening it up to everybody else, somebody will find that clue that says, "Hey, there it is."
And we have some stuff going for us. There is a new kind of there's new leadership here. It's a new chief of police in town, not the same chief. She was talking to the chief of police in that video. And there are some of the same detectives and some of the same officers. And so, I don't want to point fingers at the officers, because I want to give those officers a chance to talk about this case. Now, if they refuse to talk to me about this case, I'll point some fingers and I'll be knocking on doors and stuff to find out why they don't want to talk about this case. But I am under the impression that this is a closed case. And so with it being closed, they should be able to talk about it. They should be able to tell us their version. That's something that I have had to like think about, because Vicky is passionate. This is her daughter, right? And I know, even when I was talking to her today, and when I received these discs, I was like, Vicky, do you really remember what's on these discs? Do you remember? Because she was telling me a few things that were on the disc, but I was like, I just listened to a few of these things, and I was like, I don't know if she remembers everything she recorded 10 years ago. And so, and I don't know if she remembers everything that these cops said and how they said it and the attitude they said it with. And so we're definitely going to open some eyes around town. Now, the question will be, how open are the officers to look at this? How open are the new officers to say, okay, yeah, let's take another look at this case. It's worth taking another. If anything, it's worth it. Why not? Why wouldn't you? We're talking about somebody's daughter. We're not talking about you. We're not trying to ask you to make a bunch of arrests. I'm not even sure that this isn't a case of, I'm not even sure that this isn't some weird accident case or something that went wrong. Were they messing around with something messing around with some drugs, even though that Mindy Lee's wasn't a drug addict. She wasn't a drug addict, but she's hanging out with known drug dealers. These guys are known drug dealers. They're known. She knows what kind of people they are. And these aren't people her mom wanted her to hang out with. These aren't people that her boyfriend Kyle wanted her to hang out with. And so there is some weirdness around those relationships, but that also brings into, some questions to be answered. And so, but I'm not, so it's going to be fun. So, hey, thanks for calling tonight. Great questions, great observations.
Well, thanks for putting it out. I seen this when you originally did the video on it. And it, to me, would even be interesting, because I can remember when you would go out there and you would say this wasn't here back then, to even compare what you showed us before of today and what it actually looked like back then.
Well, yeah, that's what made it amazing to me. And when I didn't know she did that walkthrough with those videos. And when I popped that first disc open and I looked, and I was like, oh my God, and I looked at the dates that these videos were taken. I mean, these are actual, it's encrypted in the info of these videos. I was like, this stuff is 29 days after she was found. This is what this place looked like when she was found. And you can see in those videos that barbed wire, that if she went this certain way, she was going over that barbed wire. If she went this way, she was going to have to go over this fence. She was going to have to run across this valley, over this field, through this, and so, it amazes me that Vicky had the insight at that time. And it almost sounded to me in some of the videos like she was making these videos for herself. She was talking to herself in the past, going, this is what they're telling me happened. It just doesn't make sense. And just so she could remember herself, just so she could remind herself. And that's what makes
I got the impression she was making it for a private detective or for somebody, because she would say, you can look at this and see, you can look and tell.
Well, she definitely, there was definitely that too. And she may have been, but this was she didn't even, Bobby Brown didn't even pick this case up yet. I don't think at this time I don't think Bobby picked this case up until January. And so in January of 2011. And so like a month after, Bobby didn't pick this. I'm almost for sure Bobby didn't pick this case up until 2011. And those videos were taken in December of 2010. And so she may have been making them to show investigators or to show someone to tell that story. But there were a couple of times when I felt like she was talking to herself, just to remind herself, like, because I can imagine as a mother and as anyone, looking into this case. You want to think that the cops are doing everything they can. You want to believe that they're investigating this to the fullness of what their potential. But it became very clear to me when the guy started having the argument about the autopsy report. She's like, I got the autopsy report and you guys don't have it yet. What are you talking about? You got to request this. And they're like, no, you don't. But in fact, I bet they did have to request, or at least the coroner from Teller County had to request it from the coroner in El Paso so that then they could pass it along to the cops. So he was
really a stickler about that, though. He was very...
I've been here since 1979.
Back to, I'm not trying to tell you, but we don't have to ask for that. Like, he kept going back to it.
But yet he didn't have it and mom had it?
And since when does the coroner drive to your house to drop off official reports?
Well, no. So that's another thing. Yeah, so this is old school too, 10 years ago. But let me tell you something about the death records in this town. The coroner, Al Bourne, and this is going to get me on. He's an elected official, by the way. So they can't get me for defamation because he was an elected public official. This cat turned down a $300,000 grant from the federal government to digitize our death records because they didn't want people because to digitize them means somebody's going to go over them. And so our death records to this very day, to this moment in time where I'm sitting in my living room, our death records are kept in a storage unit on paper. They have not been digitized into the computers. And it's 2020, people. I got a television station.
They didn't know what happened to Patrick's dad.
This is exactly why they didn't know. They don't know what happened to a lot of people in this town. This is why they made shit up about Joshua Maddox. And I ain't even touched that case yet, but we'll get into.
The thing that I think got me about it is when she said, well, I said I would come pick it up, and he didn't want that.
Yeah, so Vicky's explaining.
My first thought was, why did he not want her in his space?
Well, because his office, the coroner, didn't have an office, he worked out of his home. So his office was at his home. And so that's the reason why he brought those to her. So he didn't have an office. And that was the El Paso County coroner at the time. So yeah, that's why he came to her. It is a little, like, even chat, they're saying that's bizarre that he didn't have an office, but that is literally the reason he worked out of his office. But that's another, you guys are getting a glimpse of how backwards this little county has been for years, right? This was 10 years ago. And in my opinion, it's just as backwards today. When we think about the fact that I'm live streaming, I literally have people all over the world watching, and they have our death records stored in a storage unit. They don't have them on record. They don't put them in the computer. They're not scanned into the computer. And so, he was the Teller County. She's saying he was the Teller County coroner. My bad. So,
but even then, I've never seen an elected official of any type that's not given some sort of an office.
Yep. No, that's how backwards this little county is. No, that's how crazy backwards it is.
I used to want to visit Colorado. I'm starting to not want to anymore.
Well, I hear people say that, but and I'm okay with that. Y'all don't need to come here. We're overcrowded anyway. So,
well, at the rate that Teller County's taking people out.
Well, Teller County's a special place. They don't like, this is why probably the biggest reason why I'm going to be getting heat over this is because they don't like people to talk about this stuff. They want you to talk about nice little things, and it's just a nice little great little county up in Colorado. But the truth is, there is some real, like, because of the incompetence, that's when corruption can run wild, right? It doesn't mean everyone's corrupt, but if you're trying to stay quiet about what's going on, or you're trying to stay quiet about what's corrupt in this town, then you become almost complicit with that corruption. And so, oh, great call. 46 minutes, girl. We've been talking. It's felt like 5 minutes.
I know. I could do this all day long. And I really hope this mom finds some justice. I can't imagine. I can't. I only have one daughter, but I would probably be just like her.
Well, if
driving everybody, the cops and anybody that would listen, but that's your kid.
If 90 people are watching just this video between Facebook and YouTube right now, which isn't a ton of people, just 90 people, but if every one of those people would share this video or share the video I just played, the actual stuff of her mom, you don't have to share this video, then it will make a difference. It will make a difference. We can make a difference. We can bring some justice for Vicky. We can bring some justice for Aspen. We can bring justice for Mindy. So we can make a difference. And so that's what I encourage people to do. This is a different case. This is not something that's active in the news today, but it could be active tomorrow if enough people will jump on board and realize. I think that's the coolest thing about today. You can't fake that recording. Those cops didn't know that recording was happening. And everyone listened tonight, and you can hear Vicky was not rude or mean, or, she was a mother who was concerned, that had questions. And there were some times when those cops just dismissed her questions almost without regard. And then some of her questions were so logical that it didn't make sense to me, the answers the cops were given, and so.
Well, and there was times that it almost seemed like she'd called them. They didn't have an answer.
Absolutely.
And they would stutter over that. Wait, what? Or, well, we need to look that up. I mean, she was asking them questions they weren't prepared to answer.
Absolutely.
Because they didn't think anybody was going to ask.
And we're just getting started. You wait. I wish I could just release it all, but I want to be effective. I want this to be effective. So, hey, thanks for the call.
Thank you for what you do.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Brilliance, people. Jamie asked if Vicky was aware of the petition going around. Yes, the petition going around. Vicky knows about that petition, and yeah, there's a petition out there. I'm not necessarily backing that petition in a sense of, but I'm not against the petition. I'm like one of those people that the more noise we can make, the more noise we can make. But this is going to take a little bit more than a change.org petition to bring some light to it. But there is a change.org petition that if you want to go sign or be a part of it, there is one out there. You can check it out in the group. Again, I'm going to be talking about this probably every day. I'm going to do some sort of, I don't know that I'm going to do 2.5 hour lives every night about this case, but over the next few weeks, however many weeks it takes, we're going to talk about this case. And it is my absolute goal is to make enough noise that someone that knows something, someone that feels guilty, someone that a cop that's no longer here, an investigator that's no longer here. There are some things that's going to be revealed in these lives, and I hope to have Vicky on live. I hope to be able to talk some of the other people that have been following this case for years to come on and give their intake into this. But we're going to scream this. We're going to scream from the mountaintops. So thanks for joining. I only needed one call tonight. That was a brilliant call. Asked a lot of great questions and a lot of great insight into some of the stuff we watched. It's midnight. It's past midnight. It's 12:30. Y'all have a good night. Thanks for watching Dad with a Phone. Make sure to go over and follow me on all my little social medias. If you have comments or questions, You can email me at therealdadwithaphone@gmail.com. But probably the best thing to do is send me a text message to my burner phone. And then if you want to help support the channel and what we're doing, you can always donate to the PayPal, but you are not obligated by it at all. So, haha, it says you're a founding member. I messaged a guy who has his own show on TV. I PM'd him about you, D-Wop. What up? What up, Don? Send it. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you for joining. I know this is hard, but you know that there are people out there that love you, Vicky, and there are people that are praying for you. Screw it. I'm gonna pray, whether you like it or not. Father, I ask that you open up some eyes. Father, I ask that you open up some ears. Father, I pray that you open up some eyes and turn them towards Mindy Lee, that you turn some eyes towards the noise of this case. And Father, I believe you promised me something this year, and I believe that those promises have to do with this case, and I believe that those promises are going to be fulfilled in 2020. And I call you on those promises tonight when it surrounds the Mindy Lee case, that we will open this case up, that we will have someone come forward. And as I talked about today, there is enough people in here that will agree with me. I pray a cloud of conviction on the people involved in this case right now, as they may be sitting in their homes and they have no clue what's happening on YouTube right now, no clue what's happening on Facebook right now. I pray right now that you convict some folks and you bring down this cloud of guilt or shame on anyone who knows anything about this case, whether they were involved in this case, whether they just heard about it at a party one time where somebody was saying we got away with this, or I know something that happened to me. Father, I pray a cloud of conviction on those people, that they will have to come forward, or they will not ever live in peace. They will have no peace in their life until they begin to share what they know about the Mindy Lee case. I believe that. I believe you're going to do that in 2020. I believe someone's going to come out of the woodwork we didn't even know existed, that knows something about this case. And I know that there are people that are listening right now that will agree with me. And so I pray that in your name, Father, I ask that you make that so in 2020. Y'all have a good night. We'll talk to you later.